Yes, my dear friends, come on. Let's start discussion about the next mock test paper and mock test paper 2, which has come in April 2019. Already we completed March 19. Now we'll also talk about April 19 mock test paper. Are we ready, guys? Apart from this, I also have 2-3 more mock test papers that also we'll discuss. After that, we'll spend some good time on past exam questions also. Clear? So let's proceed. Come on, first. Division A, multiple choice questions, 30 marks. Of course, Division A will be 30 marks for multiple choice questions. After that, you will also have descriptive questions also. Let's start. Come on. Look at this, my dear friends. Analyze the transactions mentioned below. Mr. Abhinay provides architect services to Institute for Rural Development, a government agency, for 2,80,000, including 30,000 GST. That means before GST is 2,50,000. Under a contract in October 2018, Mr. Abhinay is registered under GST. Being a registered supplier, Institute for Rural Development deducted TDS of the supplier. Say, why would TDS apply, my dear friends? Come on. What is that line I'll write? TDS will not apply since contract value. And whenever we say contract value always means value before GST. Since contract value does not exceed 2.5 lakhs. Friends, let me tell you very clearly, the provisions of TDS will apply only when contract value exceeds 2.5 lakhs. If it's exact 2.5 lakhs also, TDS provisions will not apply. Getting clarity, guys? Very good, come on. Manmohak Apparels is registered under GST in Madhya Pradesh. It sells what's it? Leather handbags in India, across India through e-commerce operator Ping Pong. Very good. So practically we know that there are two big e-commerce operators, that is Amazon and Flipkart. And it is not that Amazon Flipkart sells their own goods. It is basically there are a lot of suppliers who are registered with Amazon and Flipkart and who supply their goods through Amazon or Flipkart. One more example, Swiggy. Through Swiggy, people supply food. See, for example, when we open a Swiggy app and order some food from a restaurant, that Swiggy is not cooking that food I'm bringing. Swiggy delivery person will actually go to that restaurant, pick up that food and come and deliver it to us. Correct or not? So basically that Swiggy operator is only acting as an e-commerce operator. That's it. So Swiggy is only acting as what, my dear friends? E-commerce operator. And I really want you to understand the point that this e-commerce operator are those people who actually do not supply anything on their own. Through some other person or for some other person, these guys supply. Clear, my dear friends? For example, if I order one cell phone on Amazon, some other supplier is actually supplying me that cell phone through Amazon. Clear? Right. Ping Pong is also registered with Madhya Pradesh GST authority as TCS collector. Let me tell you very clearly that TCS provisions will apply under section 52 whenever any person supplies goods or services through e-commerce operator and consideration is collected by e-commerce operator. Next, collected TCS at 1%, 0.5 on supplies made through it. Manmohak Apparels made sales of 3,45,000 and received returns of 67,700 in the month of October. Sales are inclusive of tax. Very good. And leather handbags are taxable at 18% GST. Ping Pong collected TCS of 2,350 from Manmohak Apparels. So let me explain this concept to you very clearly. So please understand. Come on. There is somebody called Manmohak Apparels. This Manmohak Apparels, what are they doing, my dear friends? Manmohak Apparels is actually supplying some goods through Ping Pong. And what is Ping Pong actually? Ping Pong is nothing but an e-commerce operator. And there is a customer. Now what is happening is that Manmohak Apparels is supplying goods to customer through ping pong. Exactly. This was the transaction there. Manmohak Apparels is supplying goods to whom, my dear friends? Customers. Through whom, sir? Ping pong. Now my question to you, customer will actually make payment to whom, sir? Customer will make payment to ping pong, and then ping pong will make payment to Manmohak Apparels, and then when they are making payment, they will do TCS at the rate of 0.5% plus 0.5%. And in this context, important point which a student should know very clearly is that section 52 clearly says that TCS is done on net value of taxable supplies. When I say net value, that means what? Supplies made minus supplies returned. Now what is the supplies made? What is supplies made, my dear friends? 3,45,000 and returns is 67,700. 3,45,000 is the supplies made. Returns are 67,700. Correct, my dear friends? Speak out. 3,45,000 minus 67,700. 3,45,000 minus 3,45,000 minus 67,700. This comes to 2,77,300. This 2,77,300. Let me tell you an interesting point. This 2,77,300 is the value before GST. I mean to say value including GST. Therefore, value excluding GST is how much? 277,300 into 100 divided by 118. This comes to 2,35,000. How much is value before GST, my dear friends? Value before GST is 2,35,000. That is the value before GST, or value excluding GST, 2,35,000. Therefore, TCS at the rate of 0.5% plus 0.5%, that is 1% on 2,35,000 will come to 2,350. That becomes my amount of TCS. I hope you are understanding this question, my dear friends. Very good. Going back to the question. Ping pong corrected how much TCS? 2,350. That is 100% correct, my dear friends. Come on, see below. Which of the following transactions, are in compliance with 51 or 52? First one is not in compliance, but second one is in compliance. So answer is second bit, my dear friends. That means what? Only 2. Because that is only correct. Because in first case, TDS provisions will not apply because contract value does not exceed 2.5 lakhs. Friends, we have got some limit of 2.5 lakhs only in case of TDS, but not in case of TCS. Even if 1 rupee also TCS will apply, but the condition for TCS is that supplies are made through e-commerce operator, and e-commerce operator collects consideration on behalf of supplier. E-commerce operator collects consideration on behalf of supplier. Then only provisions of TCS will apply. Getting clarity, friends? Very, very interesting and wonderful concept actually. Good. Second bit. Come on, my dear friends. Korelal Print and Private Limited. I repeat one more time. Korelal Print and Private Limited, a registered person under GST in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, has been engaged in the business of offset printing, some printing activity, and has been providing services to various book publishers. A publisher situated in the state of Himachal Pradesh, a registered person under GST, sent content of the books to be printed by Korelal Print and Private Limited in PDF format. And publisher also sent paper worth 4 lakhs to the printer free of cost. Very good. For the purpose of printing its books on 10th November. Korelal Print and Private Limited raised invoice for 1,50,000 against printing of books and returned the printed books through challan to the publisher on 20th February 2019. Proper officer intercepted, I repeat one more time, proper officer intercepted the vehicle and claimed that Corelal Printon should have sent invoice for 5.50 lakhs, that is including the value of free of cost paper supplied by the publisher. Sir, one point let me very clearly tell you, we have got one section called section 15(2)(b), which says supplier's obligation in relation to supply, supplier's obligation in relation to supply met by recipient is included in value of supply. But my dear friends, let me very clearly discuss with you, in this particular question, 4 lakhs worth of paper were sent by whom, sir? It has been sent by publisher to Corelal Printon. But what is the activity of Corelal Printer? Corelal Printon activity is only to what, my dear friends? Printing the books. So for printing the books, how much they charged? 1.5 lakhs. So that only becomes value of supply. Because in the question they never told, it is the responsibility of Corelal. It is a responsibility of the Corelal of that 4 lakhs met by recipient. Like that they never told in the question. So value of supply will definitely be 1.5 lakhs only, because the agreement is only for printing the books. You can very clearly see that publisher registered as in PDF format and he has sent paper also for printing the books. So the only activity is printing service. For the printing service, 1.5 lakh bill is given. That's it. Your advice suitably, which one of the following is correct option? Value of supply for paper for job work to be included in the invoice? No. Goods sent for job work, that is paper sent for printing, is composite supply? No. Corelal Printon Private Limited has entered into an agreement of printing books, therefore is liable to pay on 5.50 lakhs. That is also no. So obviously answer is D1. Corelal Printon Private Limited has entered into agreement only of printing books, so is liable to pay tax only on the net value of 1.5 lakhs. If that 4 lakhs is the supplier's obligation met by recipient, then we'll include that 4 lakhs in the value of supply also. If not, value of supply is always 1.50 lakhs. Getting clarity, friends? Very good. Question number 3 now. Pallivali Desai, what a crazy name. Pallival Desai, a registered chartered accountant, registered practice and chartered accountant located in Jaipur. Where is Jaipur? Rajasthan. In the state of Rajasthan, is providing professional and consultancy services to its various clients from his firm. He has taken some professional consultancy services from another establishment of its firm in UK. That means what? He has done some import of services from establishment outside India. Such services would have been taxable at 18% had they been received in India. Also, Pallival Desai would have paid 4 lakh rupees had he had not received the services from UK establishment. State the liability of Pallival Desai out of the following options. First of all, let me tell you, as per section 7(1)(c), read with schedule 1. Friends, 7(1)(c), read with schedule 1, talks about transactions regarded as supply even though there is no consideration. I repeat one more time, what does 7(1)(c) talk, my dear friends? Transactions regarded as supply even though there is no consideration. In that 4th point says, import of services by a person from a related person or from any of his establishment outside India in the course or furtherance of business. Here if you observe, Pallival Desai has taken some consultancy services from his establishment outside India. So definitely, as per this section, it is regarded as supply. Clear, my dear friends? And the value of supply will be, obviously we'll take the value as open market value. Obviously we'll take it as open market value, 4 lakhs. On that 4 lakhs, what is the GST rate? 18%. On 4 lakhs, 18% GST comes to 4 lakhs into 18%. Wait a second. 4 lakhs into 18%. That comes to 72,000. And obviously, what we will pay is IGST because it is import or import of service. We will always pay IGST because it is regarded as interstate supply. So answer is 72,000 IGST. So fourth question answer is, third question answer is option A, my dear friends. Getting clarity, sir? Speak out. Very good. Then question number 4. Radhika Travels Private Limited purchased a bus chassis. Chassis means what? Engine. From Jyoti Motors Limited for a consideration of 80 lakhs. Then after that, what they have done? Radhika Travels has sent the bus chassis for bodybuilding. Bodybuilding means what? On the chassis, they'll get the body ready, design ready. Technically, that is a service. And paid in advance the total consideration of 25 lakhs on 10th August only. Hanuman Fabricators, after completing the bus body, informed Radhika for inspection of the work done on 1st September. Radhika Travels visited the workshop of Hanuman Fabricators on 7th September and confirmed that bus body was in accordance with the terms of the contract. Hanuman Fabricator raised invoice of 25 lakhs on 15th September and supplied chassis along with the bus body so constructed along with the invoice on 16th September. State the time of supply in this case out of the choices given below. First of all, my dear friends, in general, bus bodybuilding activity, in general, bus bodybuilding activity is regarded as service, my dear friends. Regarded as service. And when we talk about time of supply, we have got the general rule called section 13(2), which talks about time of supply in case of services in general, my dear friends. Which section, sir? 13(2). And 13(2) clearly says, if invoice is issued within time, if invoice issued, what, my dear friends? Within time, then time of supply is date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. When I say within time, what is the meaning of this word called within time, my dear friends? That's very interesting. Within time is, in general, 30 days from completion of service. But in case of banks, NBFC, the answer is 45 days. Come on, my dear friends. General language is always 13(2) talks about time of supply in case of services. Time of supply for services in general. 13(2) is like general rule. In this general rule, what they told is 2 categories, my dear friends. First category, invoice issued within time. Within time means what? 30 days in case of normal case. Banks, NBFC case, it is 45 days. Other category, invoice not issued within time. Now, interesting point you have to observe is that if invoice is issued within time, my dear friends, time of supply is date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Whichever is what, my dear friends? Earlier. And if invoice is not issued within time, time of supply is date of completion of service. DOCS means date of completion of service or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Here if you observe, when is the completion of service? Completion of service happened on 7th of September, because 7th September only they confirmed that is perfect. 7th September work has got completed and invoice issued on 15th September. That means what? Within 30 days. When invoice issued within 30 days, what is time of supply then? Date of invoice, date of payment, whichever is earlier. That means straight away my answer is 10th August. In fact, this much story is not required also. We can directly tell the answer. Directly also what we can tell is, whenever advance come, the date of advance only becomes time of supply. Because one wonderful concept is there in the law, that is, as per notification number 66 by 2017, dated 15th November 2017, there is no need to pay GST on advance received for supply of goods. But in case of advances in relation to services, GST is definitely payable. Advance in relation to supply of goods, otherwise if any advance is received related to supply of goods, there is no need to pay GST on advances. But in services, definitely GST is payable on advances. So straight away my answer becomes 10th August without this much discussion also. But I told you all these things so that you will get a complete clarity of thought on what this concept is actually talking about. Clear, my dear friends? Good. Fifth question, come on. So friends, fourth one, what is the answer? Fourth one answer is option. Fourth one answer is what, my dear friends? Option A. Next. Fifth question. Salman Khan, a resident of Mumbai, fantastic, booked a Videocon DTH. Videocon D2H. D2H basically means direct to home. That is what is the meaning of DTH. The dish connection, what we have at home. Correct, my dear friends? See that it is other home in Delhi. Very good. His friend Shah Rukh Khan is a resident of Kerala, paid the charges for Salman's D2H connection in Delhi at the time of actual installation. That means Mumbai person has got D2H installation done at his house in Delhi, and his friend Shah Rukh Khan, who is of Kerala, he paid what, my dear friends? He paid what, sir? He paid charges for installation. Then Shah Rukh Khan went to Kolkata after making the payment. Both Salman and Shah Rukh are not registered in GST. Determine place of supply of D2H service provided by Videocon to Salman Khan. Wonderful. Let me explain this to you. So whenever we talk about telecommunication services, what services, my dear friends? Telecommunication services. For this, place of supply is given by a wonderful section called section 12(11). Which section, friends? 12(11), which says, in case of a fixed line or D2H, POS shall be the place where it is installed. Come on, my dear friends, an interesting language. In case of a fixed line or a D2H, POS shall be the place where it is installed. If you observe carefully, Salman Khan is of Mumbai. Payment is made by Shah Rukh of Kerala. But ultimately, where is that D2H installed, my dear friends? D2H is installed in Delhi. They clearly told that Salman's D2H connection in Delhi. So place of supply will definitely become Delhi, my dear friends. So answer is option C, sir. Getting clarity, guys? Speak out. Very good. Then, sixth question. Which of the following statement is correct? See now, services by an artist by way of performance in folk or classical art forms of music, dance or theatre. This point I told you so many times as what, sir? Brand ambassador. When it is brand ambassador, it is definitely taxable. It's definitely taxable. Now what is that they used? If the consideration charged for performance is not more than 1.5 lakh is exempt. So what? 1.5 lakh limit will not apply when service is given as a brand ambassador. When we give a service as a brand ambassador, even though it does not exceed 1.5 lakh, still it is taxable. If it is not a brand ambassador, then if the consideration does not exceed 1.5 lakh, then it is exempt. More than 1.5 lakh, then it is taxable. So this statement is not correct. Next bit, services of life insurance business under life micro insurance product as approved by IRDA having minimum amount of cover of 2 lakhs is exempt. So this is also not correct, my dear friends. because law never told minimum. Law told maximum cover is 2 lakhs. Next one. Service by an acquiring bank 20% in relation to settlement of an amount up to 2,500 in a single transaction is exempt. This is also not correct because it is not 2,500. Exemption is only when it is up to 2,000. Then, services provided by GTA by way of transportation in a goods carriage of goods where the gross amount charged for transportation of goods on a consignment transported in single carriage. If it is single carriage, the limit is 1,500 for exemption. But what is the figure, sir? 2,250. That means this statement also is not correct. So all the 4 statements are not correct. So what is the answer, my dear friends? So answer is straight away none of the above. I hope you are understanding, my dear friends. Speak out. Very good. Now look at question number 7, my dear friends. A taxable person has made following supplies in January 2018. Sales within the state 2 lakhs. Exports out of India 60,000. Supplies to SEZ located within the state 40,000. He does not intend to clear the goods under LUT or bond. That means if there is no LUT or bond, that means definitely you have to pay tax. And the input tax credit available to him during January 2018 is IGST nil, CGST 10,000, SGST 20,000. Clear, my dear friends? See now, there is no opening balance in his electronic cash ledger or electronic credit ledger, and the tax rates are 9, 9, 18. How much amount is payable by him in cash? So friends, if I start solving this question, what is the opening input tax credit, my dear friends? IGST, CGST, SGST. What is the opening credit, sir? IGST is nil, CGST is 10, SGST is 20. So my opening input tax credit is nothing but IGST is nil, CGST is 10,000, SGST is 20,000. Come on. IGST nil, CGST 10,000, SGST 10,000, 20,000. Then current month credit. What is my current month credit? Current month, how much is that, my dear friends? Oh, wait a second. The input tax credit available to him during January is, figures are given. There is no opening balance. That means whatever figures I wrote are current month credit only. Opening nothing is there. Very good. So this figure is current month input tax credit. Come on, input tax credit. Then other side, if I put down my figures of output tax, what is the output tax? On sales within the state 2 lakhs, I have to pay CGST and SGST. On 2 lakhs, I have to pay CGST and SGST. Correct or not? Yes. Come on. Output tax. First one, CGST and SGST of 2 lakhs means what percent? 9%. That means what? 18,000 each. Then second transaction, what is the story? Export out of India. On this I will charge IGST. Supplies to SEZ. This also I will charge IGST. Clear, friends? Exactly. Export out of India 60,000. Sale to SEZ 40,000. For exports, 60,000 into 18%, and for supplies to SEZ 40,000 into 18%. How much is 60,000 into 18%, my dear friends? Come on. 60,000 into 18%, that's coming to 10,800, and 40,000 into 18% is coming to 7,200. 10,800, 7,200. My dear friends, when I start talking about net liability, what we will do always is, first please take 3 columns. IGST, CGST, SGST. All these you will not write in the exam because it's a multiple choice question. But you should know how we got that answer. Come on, tell me guys, what is my output tax, sir? IGST figure is 18,000, CGST is 18,000, SGST also 18,000. Less. Always, my dear friends, keep in mind what credit we have to use. First is always IGST credit. CGST, SGST credit to be utilized. I repeat one more time. Listen very carefully, sir. CGST, SGST credit to be utilized. CGST, SGST credit to be utilized only after IGST credit is fully exhausted. What is my IGST credit? First, what is my IGST credit, sir? Nil. So gone. Nothing is there because it is nil. And one thing always keep in mind, before we use CGST, SGST credit, always we have to use what, my dear friends? IGST credit. And IGST credit for what purpose we will use? IGST credit is first used for output IGST. Then we can use it for CGST or SGST in any order or any manner. I repeat one more time, input IGST is first supposed to be used for output IGST. Then we have to use it for CGST or SGST in any order or any manner. Then CGST, what you use it for first? First we will always use it for CGST only. If any balance is there, then only we will use it for IGST, my dear friends. But we can't use CGST for SGST, SGST for CGST. SGST, how much I have? 18,000 is my output, but credit I have got 20,000. So here I will utilize 18,000, balance 2,000, I'll use it here. So what I'm supposed to pay is IGST I have to pay 16,000, CGST I have to pay 8,000, SGST is nil. That's it. So always keep in mind, my dear friends, input IGST to be used first for output IGST, then for CGST or SGST in any order, any manner. Next, input CGST is to be first used for output CGST, then only for output IGST, then input SGST first for output SGST, then for output IGST. But we can't use CGST for SGST or SGST for CGST. I repeat one more time, we cannot use CGST for SGST and SGST for CGST. I hope we are clear with this point, everyone. So what is the answer, my dear friends? Payable. Payable using cash ledger is 16,000 IGST, 8,000 CGST. 16,000 IGST, 8,000 CGST. So answer is option D, my dear friends. I'm sure it makes sense, everyone. Good. Next point. Sukanya, a registered supplier, failed to pay GST amounting to 5,000 for the month of January. Proper officer imposed a penalty on Sukanya on failure to pay tax. Very good. Sukanya believes that it is a minor breach. Sir, we don't call it as a minor breach, because to call it as a minor breach, amount of tax involved should be less than 5,000. Here in this case, it is exactly 5,000. If it's exactly 5,000, we don't call it as a minor breach. To call it as a minor breach, it should be less than 5,000, my dear friends. See now, penalty is liable on first point. Which of the following statement is what, sir? True. Penalty is liable on Sukanya since the breach is considered as minor breach only if the amount of tax involved is less than 5,000. Perfect. This is true actually. Second, penalty is not liable on Sukanya since breach is minor breach if the amount is up to 5,000. This is false. Penalty is liable on Sukanya since breach is minor breach only if the amount of tax is nil. That is also false. None of them also is not correct. This statement is true because as per section 126, which talks about general disciplines related to the penalty, in that they clearly told in the law where they say that no penalty is leviable if the breach is a minor breach. Minor breach is a case where amount of tax involved is less than 5,000. If it's exact 5,000 also, we don't call it as a minor breach. Minor breach is only a case where amount of tax involved is less than 5,000. Getting clarity, guys? Very good. Come on, next. Question number 9. Sit down. Ninth question, my dear friends, kindly concentrate. Rupam wishes to file an appeal before appellate tribunal. Very good. In which of the following cases appellate tribunal can refuse to admit his appeal? Friends, let me very clearly tell you, appellate tribunal can refuse to admit if the amount involved does not exceed 50,000. When I say amount involved, it could be tax or ITC or fine or penalty. So first option, amount of tax, ITC exceeds 50,000. If it exceeds 50,000, they cannot refuse. They cannot refuse. Second one, exceeds 50,000, then also they cannot refuse. Is 50,000, then they can refuse. 50,000, then they can refuse. Less than 50 also, they can refuse. Less than 50 also, less than 50,000 also, they can refuse. So the point what I am trying to tell you is that, very clearly I am trying to tell you is that, appellate tribunal has got power to refuse to admit the appeal if the amount involved does not exceed 50,000. When I say does not exceed 50,000, exact 50 also they can refuse. Less than 50 also they can refuse. But it's more than 50, they cannot refuse. So first one is correct, second one also correct. 1 and 2. There is nothing but option A. So ninth question answer is option A, my dear friends. Then next one, certain goods were imported by air. Very good. Free on board value of the goods is 100. There's nothing but FOB value. Very good. The cost of transport, loading, unloading, handling up to importation is 25 rupees and the cost of insurance is 10. For the purpose of Rule 10.2, Customs Valuation, Determination of Value of Imported Goods, Rules 2007. Which of the following shall be added to value of imported goods? One thing let me tell you very clearly, whenever goods are imported by air, what law told is that actual freight charges, when I say freight, it covers transport, loading, unloading, handling charges. Actual charges shall be restricted to 20% of FOB. And here in this question, goods are imported by air. And what is FOB, sir? 100. And what is 20% of FOB? 20. And actual charges are 25. Even though 25, still will take as 20 only. Insurance, actual figure we know, will take actual only. If you don't know actuals, we will take 1.125% of FOB. See now, 25, so this answer is wrong. 25, this answer is wrong. 20, that is correct, but insurance cannot be 1.125. So answer is option D, my dear friends. The logic is very simple, because insurance will take 1.125% of FOB only when actual insurance charges are not ascertainable. If we know actuals, we will take actuals only. Getting clarity, my dear friends? So what they told in the law is that in case where goods are imported by air, then the cost of transport, loading, unloading, handling charges up to the place of importation is restricted to 20% of FOB. And insurance, we will take actuals. If we don't know actuals, then we will take it as 1.125% of FOB. That's it. Then question number 11, my dear friends. Mr. Khan is engaged in trading of ice cream not containing cocoa basically, in Jammu and Kashmir within the same state itself. Turnover of the firm in the preceding financial year is 80 lakhs. State the composition turnover limit for the state of Jammu and Kashmir and whether he is eligible to opt for composition scheme or not. Wonderful. Very, very interesting question actually. So let me tell you, the concept of composition scheme is dealt by one brilliant section called section 10, my dear friends. Which section, sir? Section 10. Now what does section 10 very clearly says is something like this. Listen very clearly. Which says that composition scheme can be opted only by those persons whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores. But for certain special category states, the limit is 75 lakhs. Clear, friends? Now, friends, please understand very clearly, section 10 deals with the concept of composition scheme, which clearly says that any registered person can opt for composition scheme only if the aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores. But in certain states, the limit is not 1.5 crores, the limit is only 75 lakhs. Now moving forward, my dear friends, to explain you the concept of composition scheme, when I talk about section 10, my dear friends, in general, a person can opt for composition scheme if aggregate turnover during, I repeat one more time, if aggregate turnover during preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores. Aggregate turnover during preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores. Correct, my dear friends? But we have got some special category states, my dear friends. Now, what is this concept of special category states? Let me very clearly tell you, we have got some states like Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, listen my dear friends, Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Sikkim, come on my dear friends, Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Sikkim. Last one, there is also something called Meghalaya also. Come on, if you observe how many lists has come, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, exactly. Friends, let me tell you, these are 11 special category states, 11 special category states as per Constitution of India. 11 special category states as per Constitution. But interesting point to be noted is that what they told in the law is, in case of, come on my dear friends, kindly please concentrate, kindly please focus here. These 11 are called as special category states as per Constitution. But one point which I clearly want to tell you is that in case of Assam, Himachal Pradesh, third one, Jammu and Kashmir. I repeat one more time, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir. Now what is the interesting point you have to observe is that in case of Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, these three states, they told very clearly, limit is 1.5 crores. And for balanced special category states, limit is 75 lakhs. So friends, let me very clearly tell you that section 10 talks about the concept of composition scheme, which says that any person can opt for a composition scheme if his aggregate turnover during preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores. But one important point to be noted is that there are totally 11 special category states as per the Constitution, and out of that 11 special category states, for 8 special category states, the limit is 75 lakhs. Whereas for 3 special category states, that is Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, the limit is still 1.5 crores only. This is the latest concept applicable for your exam, my dear friends. This is the latest concept applicable for your exam. I hope you are clear with this. Everyone speak out please. Come on, brilliant. I'll move forward, come on. We are in which state, my dear friends? Jammu and Kashmir. What is the limit then? Jammu and Kashmir limit is 1.5 crores. So can you opt for composition scheme? Answer is yes. because it is only 80 lakhs. But in your options, nowhere you will find 1.5 crores. The reason being very clear that once upon a time the limit was only 75 lakhs. Later on only they changed it to 1.5 crores. That is why that option is not there. But in exam, which you are going to write, definitely the limit is 1.5 crores only. Getting clarity, friends? Good. Come on, see now. 12th question. Which one of the following persons are not liable to obtain registration compulsorily? When I say compulsorily, I am talking about something called section 24. Friends, before that, are we clear with this concept, my dear friends? What I wrote here? Sir, this is very, very important. No games at all. Extremely important concept. High possibility question will come. Wherein section 10 clearly says, any person can opt for composition scheme if aggregate turnover during preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores. And there are 11 special category states, of which for each special category state the limit is 75 lakhs. But for Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, the limit is still 1.5 crores only. Very, very interesting concept. And I hope we are getting clarity on this point. Clear? Good. Do you want to write this? I'll just wait for 1 minute. If you want to write, you can take it as a quick summary. And moreover, to highlight, my dear friends, to highlight some interesting point to you, which I can highlight for you is, listen. These 4 states, what I wrote, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, these 4 are special category states for the purpose of section 22. Section 22 is persons liable for registration. That is generally who is liable for registration is only that person whose aggregate turnover exceeds 20 lakhs. But if a person has got taxable supplies in special category state, then limit is not 20 lakhs, the limit is only 10 lakhs, my dear friends. I taught this concept to you. Clear? Make sense? Speak out. Finish writing, sir. Brilliant. I'll move forward then. Come on, let's look at question number what, my dear friends? 12. See that? Which one of the following persons are not liable for registration compulsorily under GST? Let me tell you very clearly that compulsory registration concept is dealt by section 24, which talks about cases where registration is mandatory even though turnover does not exceed, I mean to say, even though aggregate turnover does not exceed the threshold limit. Number 1, input service distributor, for them registration is mandatory. For them registration is mandatory. Second, persons who are required to deduct tax under 51, for them also registration is mandatory. Third, person who makes taxable supply of goods or services or both on behalf of other taxable persons as agent or otherwise. So this point also is covered in section 24. Finally, last point, person making interstate taxable supply of services with aggregate turnover of 15 lakhs in Delhi. So for him, registration is not compulsory, sir. They asked the question, which of the following persons are not liable to obtain registration compulsorily? So my answer is option D, my dear friends. Because if any person is engaged in interstate taxable supply of goods, then registration is mandatory. But if he is engaged in interstate taxable supply of services, then registration is not mandatory. I hope we are getting clarity on this point. So I repeat one more time, my dear friends, for any person who is engaged in interstate taxable supply of goods, registration is mandatory. But if he is engaged in interstate taxable supply of services, then registration is not mandatory. Clear with this? Good. Next section. As per section 54, so 54 talks about refund. Any person claiming refund of any tax, interest if any, paid on such tax or any other amount paid by him may make application before expiry of, let me tell you, it is always 2 years from relevant date. So straight away answer is 13th question answer is option A, my dear friends. Then 14th one, which of the following statement are true, my dear friends? That is what they are asking, true with respect to accounts and records. See that, come on. All accounts and records are to be retained for 5 years. This is false, my dear friends, because we have to maintain the accounts and records for a period of 72 months from due date of filing annual return. Second, stock record is to be maintained by all dealers except dealers under composition scheme. This is 100% true, sir. Stock record is to be maintained by all registered dealers including composition dealers. This is false. Then finally, last line, my dear friends. What is that? Come on, please see. Monthly production records. I repeat one more time. Monthly what, sir? Monthly production records are to be maintained by all dealers except the dealers who have taken option for composition scheme. This is false, my dear friends, because production records are to be maintained by everybody, including composition. Composition persons need not maintain only stock records. So only option B is the true. So 14th one answer is option B, my dear friends. Then GST compliance rating. Very, very wonderful question. Actually, there is one wonderful section called 149 which talks about GST compliance rating, which says that every person, based on the compliance what he is doing with the law, he will be given a rating on a scale of 10, and that rating will be publicly available in the public domain. Clear, friends? Come on. GST compliance rating shall be assigned to, number 1, only a person liable to deduct TDS or collect TCS? No. Only a composition? No. Only ISD? No. Every registered person. That is the perfect answer. Getting clarity, friends? Speak out. Very good. Then, next point. Where the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, I repeat one more time, National what's a Anti-Profiteering Authority determines that a registered person has not passed on the benefit of ITC to the recipient by way of commensurate reduction in price. We all know that there is a committee called Anti-Profiteering Committee. In fact, this concept of Anti-Profiteering Committee is dealt by one beautiful section called Section 171, which clearly says that any benefit arising on account of GST should be passed on to the consumer. Businessman cannot make profit out of GST. Then what did they ask, sir? Authority may order what? Reduction in prices, obviously. Impose prescribed penalty, 100%. They will also do cancellation of registration. So which options are correct, sir? All three are correct. So answer is option B, my dear friends. Clear? Good. Then, which of the following statement is correct while issuing a tax invoice under GST law? Let me explain that to you. Number 1, place of supply in case of interstate supply is not required to be mentioned. Sir, this is false. Place of supply is a mandatory thing to be mentioned. Then, power of attorney holder can sign tax invoice. How can a power of attorney holder sign here? Who will sign the tax invoice is only the registered person or his authorized representative. That's it. Clear, my dear friends? Next, quantity is not required to be mentioned in case of goods when goods are sold on as is, where is basis. This is also false because you will definitely have to mention description, quantity, value. Then, HSN code for goods or services is required to be mentioned. 100% this is true, my dear friends. You have to mention HSN code or SAC. But in this context, I can tell you one important concept actually. That is, for every good, I repeat one more time, for every good, department has given one code called HSN code. Otherwise, GST law has given one code called HSN code, wherein HSN stands for Harmonized System of Nomenclature, which is an 8-digit code. And for every service, they have given SAC, which stands for Service Accounting Code. And let me tell you, this service accounting code is a 6-digit code. Service accounting code is what's a 6-digit code. Now in this context, some interesting point which I want to tell you is something like this. Listen very carefully, kindly concentrate. The interesting point what they told is that if aggregate turnover during preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores, then there is no need to mention the HSN code, my dear friends. But if turnover is more than 1.5 crores but does not exceed 5 crores, then you have to mention 2-digit code. You have to mention what, my dear friends? 2-digit code. And if turnover is more than 5 crores, you have to mention 4-digit code. And when I say 2-digit, 4-digit, that is always first to 2 and first to 4. Clear, my dear friends? So, number of digits what we have to mention is based on aggregate turnover during preceding financial year. So, if the aggregate turnover during preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crores, then there is no need to mention the HSN code. And if it is more than 1.5 crores, does not exceed 5 crores, then mention 2-digit. And if it's more than 5 crores, then mention what's a 4-digit code. Are we clear with this point? Good. Going back, question number 18, my dear friends. In which of the following cases refund under section 27 is credited to Consumer Welfare Fund? What fund? Consumer Welfare Fund. If the importer proves that there is no unjust enrichment, if importer proves that there is no unjust enrichment, then importer will get refund actually. Unjust enrichment means what? Unjust enrichment basically means it is proving that we have not passed on the burden to the consumer. Unjust enrichment basically means the burden is not passed on to the consumers. Then, where goods are imported for non-personal use. Non-personal means what, my dear friends? Business use. Then, if the amount of refund relates to drawback under 74-75, interesting. If the amount relates to export duty paid on goods which have been returned to the exporter, if the amount relates to export duty paid on goods which have been returned to the exporter as specified under section 26. Now let me tell you in which case refund is created to Consumer Welfare Fund. Let me very clearly tell you that if the goods are imported for non-personal use of an individual, that means business use of an individual, then the refund is created to the Consumer Welfare Fund. Getting clarity, friends? Interesting, important concept. I hope you are clear with this point, my dear friends. Always keep in mind, my dear friends, when goods are imported for personal use, then directly that person only will get the refund. But if it is imported for non-personal use, then he will not get the refund. The amount will be first transferred to Consumer Welfare Fund. Clear? Then, question number 19. Which of the following goods are not mandatorily required to be deposited in warehouse? This question I will not discuss because warehousing provisions are not there in your syllabus. They are removed from your syllabus. Clear, my dear friends? Good. Finally, the last question in multiple choice, integrated tax leviable on imported goods is levied as what? An interesting question. As additional duty of customs under 37? No. Integrated tax under section 5 of IGST Act. That is what is the answer. Because integrated tax, whatever is levied on imported goods, is always an integrated tax because of section 5 of IGST Act. Getting clarity, friends? So speak out. Fantastic. That is the end of story for your multiple choice questions, which will generally come in exam for about 30 marks. Very, very scoring, my dear friends. No question of compromise whatsoever. Are we clear with all these points? Everybody, can we proceed? Come on, let's start discussion about the descriptive questions, my dear friends. Come on, see that. Descriptive questions. which is for about your 70 marks. Come on, see now. XYZ, a registered supplier, supplies the goods and services for construction of building and what, my dear friends? Complexes. Excavators are required. Excavators for required period at per hour rates. Manpower for operation of excavators. Already this question we solved. If you remember, we solved this question. This question came in our RTP. Soil testing and seismic evaluation. Excavators are invariably hired out along with operators. That means what? It is a composite supply. When it is a composite supply, hiring of excavators is the principal supply and manpower is only ancillary. And XYZ receives the following services. Annual maintenance service they receive, very good. Health insurance. So let me tell you, health insurance is always a block credit under section 17(5). I told this question to you actually, but still I'll spend 2 minutes to revise once again. Scientific and technical consultancy. For the given month, the receipts of XYZ are as follows. Hiring charges 18 lakhs, we'll pay GST. Service charges for manpower, we'll pay GST. Soil testing 2.5 lakhs. GST paid during the said month on services received. Annual maintenance for excavators, happily will claim input tax credit. Health insurance, no credit. Scientific technical consultancy will claim credit. Compute net GST payable, assuming rate as 12% for hiring of excavator, and for manpower services and soil testing is 18%. But even for manpower also, we will apply the rate of excavators only, because renting out of excavators along with manpower is a composite supply, wherein principal supply is hiring out of excavator and manpower is only ancillary. Opening balance of ITC is what, my dear friends? Nil. So if I start calculating, my dear friends, what is my output tax? On 18 lakhs I will charge 12%, 20,000 also 12%, and soil testing 18%. Come on, my dear friends. So when I start calculating my output tax, already we solved this question. Already we solved. But still I am solving again just for more practice. Come on. Hiring charges for excavators. Hiring charges for what, my dear friends? Excavators. What is the figure? 18 lakhs into 12%. 18 lakhs into 12%. It comes to 2 lakhs 16,000. 2 lakhs 16,000. Then 2 lakhs 16,000. Then supply of manpower. On this also we'll apply 12% only. 20,000 into 12%, which comes to 24,000. Finally, scientific testing. For scientific testing, what is the figure, sir? Come on, going back. For scientific soil testing and all, what is the answer, my dear friends? That figure is 2,50,000 into 18%. 2,50,000 into 18%. 45,000. 2,50,000 into 18% comes to 45,000. Are we getting clarity, friends? Come on, speak out. So if you observe carefully, on hiring charges we will charge 12%, service charges also will charge 12%, then for service charges for soil testing we will charge 18%, my dear friends. 2.5 lakhs into 18% is how much, my dear friends? 45,000. And 18 lakhs and also 20,000 we have taken 12%. Now one small correction, my dear friends. 20,000 into 12% is actually 2,400. Exactly. Final figure is 2 lakhs. 16, 18, 45, 2,63,400. And when I talk about input tax credit, what is my input tax credit, sir? 1 lakh I'll claim, 11,000 I'll not claim, 1 lakh I'll claim. So my total input tax credit is 2 lakh rupees. Total input tax credit is how much, sir? 2 lakhs. Total input tax credit is 2 lakhs. So final answer is 63,400. This becomes my net GST liability. That's it. I hope we got full clarity, my dear friends. Fantastic, a very brilliant and amazing problem actually, which we already discussed before also. But just that I discussed again so that we'll again get the clarity of thought. This question already came when we have done the discussion during RTP, my dear friends. Clear? Good. Come on, let's look at the B bit, my dear friends. Mr. Rajesh Surana has a proprietorship firm in the name of Surana and Sons in Jaipur. Firm is registered under GST in the state of Rajasthan, manufactures taxable products. The firm also provides taxable consultancy services. Very good. Rajesh Surana has provided consultancy services to his brother Akhilesh Surana, located in USA, without any consideration. Products manufactured by Akhilesh are similar to the one manufactured by Rajesh Surana. Surana charges, what, my dear friends? 3 lakh rupees. Surana charges 3 lakh rupees for providing similar consultancy services to other independent customers located in USA. Now what is that they're asking, my dear friends? Compute GST liability. First of all, let me very clearly tell you that we have got one section called Section 7, which deals with the concept of supply. In that Section 7, my dear friends, we have got one point called Section 7(1)(c), read with Schedule 1, which talks about transactions regarded as supply, even though there is no consideration. In that we have got one point which says supplies between distinct or related persons in course or furtherance of business. In course or furtherance of what, my dear friends? Business. Supply between distinct or related persons in the course or furtherance of business. In this context, I want to tell you one point. This talks about transaction regarded as supply, even though there is no consideration. In this context, one interesting point I want to tell you is related persons word is defined by explanation 1 to section 15, which says related person also covers members of same family. And let me very clearly tell you, this word family is defined by one brilliant section called 249. Which section, my dear friends? 249, which says family is divided into 2 parts. That is, number 1, spouse and children. That means spouse and children are always regarded as related persons. That means spouse and children are always covered in definition of family. That means they are related persons. Other side, what we have is that parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters. Parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, if they are dependent. Come on, my dear friends, I repeat one more time. What is the language I wrote, sir? Parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, if they are dependent wholly or mainly on the individual. Come on, my dear friends, an interesting language, sir. What is covered, my dear friends? Definition of family covers into 2 parts. We divide them. Number 1, spouse and children. That means spouse and children are always covered in definition of family. Other side, parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters. And one point you have to understand is that parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters are covered only if they are dependent. That too, how dependent? Wholly or mainly. Now if I go back to the question, my dear friends, they only told that Rajesh Surana has provided consultancy services to Akhilesh Surana. And Akhilesh Surana is already in USA. Correct, my dear friends? Speak out. And in the question they never told in the question that Akhilesh Surana is dependent on Rajesh Surana. When he is not dependent on Rajesh Surana, they are not called as related person. They are not called as what, my dear friends? Related person. So straight away, my point is this transaction is not a supply at all. Because in order to call it as supply, it must fit in the definition of section 7. And moreover, when there is no consideration, section 7(1)(c) read with schedule 1 will apply. And they clearly told that in case of related person, they told related person covers members of same family. And family is defined by the law, which clearly says that family covers number 1, spouse and children. Number 2, parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters. If they are dependent wholly or mainly. In this question, they only told brother, but they never told about dependent or not dependent. So obviously what will happen then? This brother is not called as a related person. When he is not a related person, the question of 7(1)(c) will not apply. When 7(1)(c) does not apply, it is not a supply at all. Such a brilliant question actually. Makes sense, right? Good. Question number 3, come on. Honeykure Laboratories, I repeat one more time, sir. Honeykure Laboratories Limited is a registered supplier of bulk drugs in Delhi. It manufactures bulk drugs and supplies the same in domestic and overseas market. Bulk drugs are supplied within Delhi and in overseas market directly from company's warehouse located in South Delhi. Sir, this kind of question also came in our RTP discussion, friends. Generally, you will find a lot of common questions between RTP and MTP, sir. So by this time, you guys would have clearly realized that a lot of questions in RTP and MTP are same. Of course, not everything. Some 30% or 20% question remain same. See now, for supplies in other states of India, company has appointed consignment agents in each such state. However, supplies in Gurgaon, Haryana and Noida, UP are affected directly from South Delhi warehouse and the drugs are supplied to consignment agent from South Delhi warehouse. Honeykure Laboratories Limited also provides drug development services to drug manufacturers located in India, including testing of their new drugs. And all the details are given. What is that they asked? You are required to determine GST liability. Very good. And what are the rates of GST they have given? All the above amounts given are exclusive of GST wherever applicable and assuming the rate of GST are 2.5%, 5% and for service 9, 9, 18. Very good. We'll start the question now. From starting we'll proceed. First, advance received towards drug development services to be provided to Orochem drug manufacturers located in Delhi. Located in where, my dear friends? Delhi. And drug development services have been provided in February and invoice is issued also in February. Correct, my dear friends? But even though invoice is in February, service also in February, you have to understand that advance is received in January only. So definitely time of supply will be January only, because for services time of supply will come when advance is received. So on this 5 lakhs we will charge what, my dear friends? CGST 9%. Why CGST, SGST? Because both of them are in Delhi. SGST also 9%. Second, advance received for bulk drugs to be supplied to Novik Pharmaceuticals, a wholesale dealer of drugs in Gurgaon, Haryana. Invoice is issued at the time of delivery of the goods in March. One point let me very clearly tell you is that no GST liability. I repeat this line one more time. No GST liability in Jan month. Why no GST liability in Jan month? I'll tell the reason very clearly, my dear friends. The logic and the reason is very clear. That is, in case of goods, when advances are received, time of supply will not arise. time of supply will arise only when invoice is issued. Whereas in case of services, when advance is received, time of supply will arise. Then supply of bulk drugs to wholesale dealers of drugs in Delhi, 60 lakhs, very good. We will charge CGST 2.5% and SGST also 2.5%. Then, let me write more properly, guys. CGST and SGST. At what rate, my dear friends? 2.5% each. Then, bulk drugs supplied to whom, sir? Bulk drugs supplied to Anchor Pharmaceuticals USA under bond. Under bond means we will call it as zero rated supply. And when it is zero rated supply, my dear friends, when it is what, my dear friends? Zero rated supply, automatically what will happen is that no GST liability will arise. Clear, sir? Finally, last one. Drug development service provided to Unipharma, a drug manufacturer located in Delhi. Unipharma drug manufacturer located in what, my dear friends? Delhi, 6 lakhs. So we will charge CGST and SGST at the rate of 9% each. Then, additional information also given, my dear friends. See that consignment of bulk drugs were sent to Cardinal Pharma Private Limited and Rochester Medicos, agents of Honicure. They are agents in Punjab and Haryana respectively. Cardinal Pharma and Rochester supplied these drugs to medical stores located in respective states at 60 lakhs and 50 lakhs respectively. Let me tell you, when we talk about an agent, Rule 29 will apply, my dear friends. And Rule 29 will say open market value or 90% of price charged when supplied to unrelated customer. When we are supplying to unrelated customer, what is the value we charge, sir? 60 lakhs and 50 lakhs. Total how much then? Total is 1.1 crores into 90%. That comes to 99 lakhs. On this, I will charge IGST at the rate of 5%. And why IGST? Because they are in different states. Getting clarity, friends? Wonderful. Finally, last bit. Bulk drugs have been supplied to Ron Medicos Private Limited, a wholesale dealer of bulk drugs in Gurgaon, Haryana for 15 lakh rupees. Honicure owns 60% of Ron Medicos. That means what will happen? They are called as related persons. And for related persons, we have got something called Rule 28, which says always preferably value of supply is open market value. Further, they told Ron Medicos is not eligible for full ITC. That point is relevant because in general, Rule 28 says value of supply is open market value. But if recipient is eligible for full credit, then invoice value shall be deemed to be open market value. But here they told he is not eligible for full credit. Therefore, value of supply, what we will take is open market value, nothing but 30 lakhs. On this 30 lakhs, we will charge IGST at the rate of 5%. That's it. Very, very interesting and wonderful question, my dear friends. Pretty simple and easy, and of course, very scoring, which actually makes lot of sense, my dear friends. I hope we are clear with this, sir. Very good. Come on. Yes, my dear friends, come on. Now let's look at the B bit. Concentrate, come on. ABC Industries Limited imports an equipment by air. Whenever it's imported by air, we all know the special point what we have. When we import by air, then the cost of transport, loading, unloading, handling, all that put together is restricted to 20% of FOB. We know that, right? Very good. Then CIF price is $6,000, freight is $1,200, insurance is $1,800. Banker realizes a payment from importer at exchange rate of 61 per dollar, whereas CBIC rate is 70 per dollar, RBI rate is 72 per dollar. What is relevant for us always is CBIC rate. Then ABC Industries Limited expends 56,000 in India. 56,000 where, my dear friends? In India, for certain development activities with respect to imported equipment. That is completely ignored, because whenever we talk about accessible value, we will consider only that cost which is incurred till the time of delivery, at the time and place of importation. Otherwise, we will consider only that cost. We will consider only that cost, whatever is incurred till the time goods reach India. Any expenditure is incurred after goods reach India, that is not considered. Clear, friends? Next, BCD 10%, IGST 12%, SWS 10%. Compute duty payable. First of all, from CIF, I have to do reverse calculation to find out FOB, because my air freight, my what freight, my dear friends? Air freight is restricted to 20% of FOB. Correct, right? Chalo, come on. Come on, friends, let me proceed. First of all, what is the CIF value, my dear friends? CIF value given in the question is $6,000. CIF value given in the question is how much, my dear friends? $6,000. Then less air freight $1,200, insurance $1,800 exactly. And if I reduce these two, then what I get is called $3,000, which becomes my FOB. To this FOB, again I will add insurance 1,800, and again I'll take freight at what value, my dear friends? 600, because the freight is restricted to 20% of FOB. And the freight is restricted to 20% of FOB for a simple fact and reason that whenever goods are imported by air, the cost of transport, loading, unloading and handling charges is restricted to 20% of FOB. Clear, friends? Then what is the final figure, sir? 3,000 plus 1,800 plus 600, which comes to $5,400. This becomes my CIF. So now my CIF in Indian rupees, with what rate will multiply by? Will multiply by 70 per dollar. Correct or not? 5,400 into 70 per dollar, 3,78,000. So what is CIF in Indian rupees, guys? 3,78,000. CIF in Indian rupees are 3,78,000. To this, I will charge BCD at the rate of 10%, which comes to 37,800. SWS, social welfare surcharge, at the rate of 10% on BCD, which comes to 3,780. Total figure 3,78,000 plus 37,800 plus 3,780, 4,19,580. What is the figure, my dear friends? 4,19,580. Correct, right? Yes. 4,19,580. On this, I will charge IGST at the rate of 12%. On 4,19,580 into 12%, 50,349.60. Friends, clear with this point? Good. Come on. 50,349.60. Finally, if I have to calculate my customs duty payable, guys, my customs duty payable is equal to BCD plus SWS plus IGST, which comes to 37,800, 3,780 plus 50,349.60. 37,800, 3,780 plus 50,349.60. How much it comes to? 91,929.6. So I'll take it as 91,929.6. I'll take it as 91,930. Clear, friends? So I'll take the figure as 91,930. This becomes my customs duty payable. I'm sure we are clear with this problem, my dear friends. An interesting question which makes some good sense. Done. Next. Moving forward, my dear friends, with question number 3. Come on, friends, let's look at question number 3 now. Question number 3, I'm looking at 3A, my dear friends. XYZ Limited, New Delhi, manufacture biscuits under a brand name Tasty Picks. Wow. Biscuits are supplied to wholesalers and distributors across India on a 4-hour basis. A 4-hour means freight on road. That means supplier only will pay freight charges also, including freight. They are collecting the amount from the warehouse of the company located at New Delhi. Company uses multiple modes of transport for supplying biscuits to customer spread across the country. Then transportation cost is shown as a line item in the invoice and billed to the customer with a markup of 2%. I already taught this concept to you. If you remember, this kind of question we covered, my dear friends, already. Clear? Then flour used for a production process is procured from vendors located in Madhya Pradesh on ex-factory basis. Company engages GTA to transport the flour from factories of the vendors to its factory located in New Delhi. Sir, this kind of question already we solved in RTP, my dear friends. Come on, see now. Company has provided following data relating to transportation of biscuits and flour in the month of April. Number 1, for sales within NCR region, company arranged one local minivan belonging to individual and paid in 54,000. Let me very clearly tell you that will be exempt. Why exempt? Let me tell the reason. Service by way of transportation of goods by road. Service by way of transportation of goods by road is exempt, except when services are given by GTA. Then, for sales to locations in distant states, company booked the goods by Indian Railways and paid rail freight. How much by difference? 3,70,000. On that, GST will apply. No doubt about it. Then, for sales to locations in neighboring states, company booked the goods by road carriers GTA and has paid road freight of 3,73,000. And out of the total sales to neighboring state, goods worth 10 lakhs were booked through GTA, which paid at 12%. 12% means no RCM. If it is 12%, my dear friends, RCM story will not apply. I already told this point to you so many times. If GTA opts to pay tax at 12%, RCM will not apply. But if GTA does not opt to pay tax at 12%, then RCM will apply. So out of this 3,73,000, on 3 lakhs, we will pay tax at 5%. And on 73,000, straight away, no RCM, but GST what we end up paying is 12%, but RCM will not come. I hope you are clear with this. Good. For purchase of flour from Madhya Pradesh, 25 lakhs, company booked the goods by GTA and paid road freight. How much, my dear friends? 55,000. Let me tell you, service given by GTA in relation to transportation of flour is actually exempt. When it is exempt, there is no question of GST. because service by way of transportation of flour by road is exempt. Like the exemption is given for milk also. So there are some good number of products for which government has given exemption. For purchase of butter from Punjab, company booked the goods by GTA and paid road freight 35,000. This will definitely be taxable. GST will come. Exemption is given by law only and only for transportation of milk, but not for butter, my dear friends. I repeat one more time, exemption is given by law only for transportation of milk, but not for butter. Next. For local purchase of baking powder, company booked the goods by GTA in a single carriage and paid 1,500. If it is 1,500, it will become exempt. Since consideration for single carriage does not exceed 1,500. Exempt since consideration for single carriage does not exceed 1,500. I hope you are clear. Finally, last line. For transferring biscuits, open market value 4 lakhs to its sister concern, company booked the goods by GTA and paid road freight. How much, my dear friends? 40,000. This will definitely become taxable. No doubt about it. Clear, my dear friends? I'm sure it makes sense for all of us. So one thing always you have to keep in mind is that whenever we talk about GTA, that service is covered under RCM. But if GTA opts to pay tax at the rate of 12%, if GTA opts to pay tax at the rate of 12%, then RCM provisions will not apply. Then RCM provisions will not apply. Getting clarity, friends? Wonderful. Based on particulars given above, compute GST payable on amount paid for transportation by XYZ Limited. That's it. I'm sure we got clarity on this point. Next, BBIT. BL Limited imported super kerosene oil and stored in warehouse. Sir, this question is basically on warehousing, my dear friends. And warehousing chapter is removed from our syllabus. Warehousing chapter is removed from our syllabus. So we can ignore this section, ignore this particular question, my dear friends. Make sense? Yes? Good. Next. Next, looking at question number 4, my dear friends. See that, come on. Super Engineering Works, a registered supplier in Haryana, is engaged in supply of taxable goods within the state. Given below are the details of the turnover and applicable GST rate on final products manufactured by Super Engineering Works, and also the input tax credit availed on inputs used in manufacture of each of the final products, and GST rates applicable on the same. See now, come on. Turnover figures are given, output rates are given, input rates are given. I want you to observe that when we talk about product A and product B, both the cases, input GST rate is higher than output GST rate. Technically, we call it as inverted duty structure. Inverted duty structure is that structure where rate of GST Inverted duty structure is that structure where rate of GST on inputs is higher than rate of GST on outputs. See below. Determine maximum amount of refund of unutilized input tax credit that Super Engineering Works is eligible to claim under 54, provided that B is notified as a product. Provided that product B is notified as a product in respect of which no refund of unutilized credit shall be allowed. That means refund will not come in respect of product B. Refund will come only in respect of product A. Clear, friends? First of all, what is the total input tax credit? Total input tax credit is nothing but 1,18,000. Correct, my dear friends? And whenever we talk about inverted duty structure, In case of inverted duty structure, my dear friends, maximum refund will be equal to, I repeat one more time, maximum refund will be equal to something like this. Listen, maximum refund will be equal to net ITC into turnover of inverted duty structure divided by total turnover minus tax on inverted duty structure. What is my ITC, sir? 1,18,000. What is inverted structure? There is only product A, 5 lakhs. Total turnover 5 plus 3.5, 8.5. 8.5 plus 1, 9 lakhs 50,000. So 5 lakhs divided by 9 lakhs 50,000. Getting clarity? Good. Into 5 lakhs divided by 9.5 lakhs minus what, my dear friends? Tax on IDS. What is the tax on IDS? 5 lakhs into 5%, which comes to 25,000. Tax on IDS is how much, my dear friends? 25,000. 1,18,000. 1,18,000 into 5 lakhs divided by 9 lakhs 50,000 minus 25,000. This comes to 37,105. These kind of questions of inverted duty structure already we solved good number of questions. So what is the answer, friends? 37,105. That becomes my maximum refund. Getting clarity, friends? That's it. That is the story of this wonderful problem. Clear? Come on, let's proceed. Second bit, my dear friends, come on. Ritesh Enterprises, registered in Delhi, is engaged in supply of various goods and services. Exclusively to whom, sir? Exclusively to government departments and agencies. And persons notified under 51. 51 deals with what? TDS. Section 51 deals with the concept of TDS, my dear friends. It has provided information relating to supplies made, their contract values and payments due. First one, we all know that provisions of TDS will come only when contract value is more than 2.5 lakhs. And 2.5 lakhs always means invoice value excluding GST. Here, come on. First case, what is the contract value? 2,60,000 is including GST. By the way, what is the rate of GST? Rate of GST is 18%. So if I do 2,60,000 into 100 divided by 118, this comes to 2,20,000. So what will happen, my dear friends? No TDS. That's it. Second case, supply of car rental services to Municipal Corporation of Delhi, 2,95,000. So it is 2,95,000 into 100 divided by 118. This comes to 2,50,000. And when it is 2,50,000, again the answer is no TDS, because provisions of TDS will apply only when contract value is more than 2.5 lakhs. Even if it is exact 2.5 lakhs also, no TDS. Next, supply of heavy machinery to public sector undertaking located in Uttarakhand, 5,90,000. So will TDS apply, sir? Yes. On 25,000, where are we, sir? We are in Delhi. We are given to somebody in Uttarakhand. So on 25,000, we'll do TDS at the rate of 2%. At the rate of 2% IGST, because it is an interstate supply. Next, supply of taxable goods to Delhi office. We are in Delhi, supplied also to Delhi, and the contract value is 649. So will TDS apply? Speak out. TDS will apply. On 50,000, how will you calculate TDS, my dear friends? TDS will be at the rate of 1% plus 1%. Why 1 plus 1? Because CGST and SGST. That's it. They just asked in the question, determine the amount of tax, if any, to be deducted from each of the receivables given above, assuming that rate of CGST, SGST, IGST are 9, 9 and 18. That's it. Story is over. Getting clarity, friends? Come on, friends. Now let's look at the B bit. RIL Limited claimed duty drawback in respect of its export products. Very good. Over 97% of the inputs by weight of the products were procured indigenously. Fine. Locally they purchased and were not excisable. Oh. All industry rates under customs and central excise duty drawback rules 1995 were fixed, taking into account the incidence of customs duty on imported inputs. Briefly explained with reference to clause 2 of second proviso to rule 3 of the said rules, whether claim of RIL will merit consideration by the authorities. So one point, let me very clearly tell you that no drawback is allowed. No drawback is allowed if duty is not paid. I repeat one more time, no drawback is allowed. No drawback is allowed if duty is not paid on the materials used. On materials used in exported goods. That means if you want drawback, one fundamental point is that whatever inputs you used, that inputs should definitely have suffered duty. If they have not suffered the duty, then there is no question of duty drawback. Getting clarity, friends? I repeat one more time. They clearly told that no drawback shall be allowed if the goods are manufactured using those materials on which you have not paid tax. Here if you observe, 97% of the inputs were procured indigenously and were not excisable. That means what? You did not pay tax. When you have not paid tax, how dare you ask about something called duty drawback? First pay the duty, pay the tax, then talk about something called duty drawback. Getting clarity on this point, friends? Yeah? Very good. So the point of the previous question is very clear that when you want duty drawback, you should have used some materials in that export product on which you would have paid some tax or duty. Only then you get something called duty drawback. And here in the question they clearly told 97% of the inputs by weight were procured indigenously and were not excisable. That means you have not paid the duty. When you have not paid the duty, how can you ask for duty drawback? Clear, friends? Good. Next question. Subharti Enterprises collected GST on the goods supplied by it from customers on the belief that the supply is taxable. However, later it discovered that goods are exempt. Accountant of the Subharti Enterprises advised it that the amount mistakenly collected by Subharti Enterprises representing as tax was not required to be deposited with the government. Nonsense. Subharti Enterprises has approached you for seeking advice on the same. You have to answer your question based on section 76, which clearly says that any tax collected in the name of the tax, any amount collected in the name of the tax should be immediately paid to the government. And if you don't do that, they'll give a show cause notice and they'll levy a penalty which is equal to the amount of the tax. And it is very important point to know that they will pass the order within 1 year from the date of invoice. They'll pass order with how much time, my dear friends? 1 year from date of invoice. And they'll definitely ask to pay along with interest also. And interest we have to pay from the date when the amount was collected. Interest we have to pay from the date when the amount was collected till the date the amount is paid to the government. For that period, we have to pay interest also. Very crazy point. Which section, my dear friends? Section 76. All these points we discussed. Right? Good. Then Sagar, Managing Director of Telecom Solutions, is issued a summon to appear before Central Tax Officer to produce books of accounts of Telecom Solutions Limited in an inquiry conducted on the company. Determine the amount of penalty, if any, that may be imposed on Sagar if he fails to appear. Sir, if he fails to appear, we have got one section called 122 subsection 3, which says penalty is maximum 25,000. How much is the penalty, sir? Maximum 25,000. Getting clarity, guys? Wonderful. Next, what are the provisions made under Customs Act regarding personal hearing and order under advance ruling? Not relevant, because earlier in our syllabus we had chapters like advance ruling, settlement commission, appeals and revisions. Lot of chapters were there in customs syllabus which all got removed from our syllabus. Clear, friends? Done. Sixth question. Discuss the liability to pay in case of amalgamation or merger. I taught this point to you very much in detail. Wherever there is an amalgamation or merger and the effective date of merger is different, order of court is different, then for the period between effective date of merger and the order of the court, they are treated as separate entities, and if any supply is made between them, that will definitely become taxable, and the registration certificate of the companies will be cancelled with effect from date of order, and then apply for fresh registration. I taught all these points to you, sir. Good. Next, when shall the particulars relating to any proceedings or prosecution be published under GST laws? Friends, for this purpose, we have got one section called 159, which talks about publication of information. Whenever commissioner or any authorized officer is of the opinion that it is necessary in the interest of public, they'll issue something like a notice, or they'll give a paper ad, or they'll give advertisement in TV, they'll publish name of the person and tell that on this person's name proceedings are going on. Clear, my dear friends? Like that they can do something called, what, my dear friends? Publication of name. But this kind of publication of name they'll do only after time limit for filing appeal is over, because if these guys file an appeal, then you can't blame them, because appeal is still going on. We will actually blame them only after appeal is over. See, for example, let's say for a second, there is one person called Mr. Ram. He is liable to pay an amount of 2 crores to the government. GST department can give a paper ad or TV advertisement or any other notice banner telling that this particular person called Mr. Ram is liable to pay 2 crores to the government, and since a long time he has not paid. Like that they can do, my dear friends. But one point is very clear, that this concept they will do only after time limit for filing appeal is over. Getting clarity, friends? Speak out. That's it. Finally, last question. Briefly explain the provisions relating to creation of first charge on the property of the assessee as provided under 142A of the Customs Act. Always remember, my dear friends, any duty payable shall always be the first charge on the property. I repeat one more time what I wrote, sir. Any duty payable shall always be what, my dear friends? First charge on the property, subject to something like number 1. We have got some act called SARFAESI Act. You would have heard this, my dear friends. SARFAESI Act, Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Asset Enforcement Security Interest Act. Clear, my dear friends? Then there is something called Recovery of Debts due to Banks Act. Recovery of Debts due to Bank Act. So like this, my dear friends, these sections, this act will apply. Even in GST law, there is a concept which says that tax is always the first charge, subject to something called Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Insolvency and what code, sir? Bankruptcy Code. Sir, these kind of provisions are old provisions. Now it's all IBC. If any person becomes insolvent, IBC only will apply. That is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. Clear, friends? Wonderful. That's it. This is what the story of this 6th question And what is the story of this wonderful mock test paper of what, my dear friends? April 2019. Mock test paper of April 2019. I strongly believe that we are clear with all these points. Everybody, my dear friends, speak out, come on. Very good. That's the end of story for mock test paper of April 2019. I'll come back to you with another wonderful mock test paper. Clear, my dear friends? Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
If you like this video, share it with your friends. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more such videos and learn from our expert faculty members. Press the bell icon to get regular notifications whenever we upload a new video. Download NDI mobile app to get complete CA course online. We value your support. Thank you for watching.